This is Christine Brown, and while I have to listen to this podcast as my motherly duty, you have the choice not to. My sons sometimes say some naughty things when they're trying to be funny, but really, they're just being stupid. If you still want to listen, go right ahead. I am not your mother.
Welcome back to the Patriots Dynasty podcast, the only podcast where we're going back and rewatching every game of the Dynasty era. We are technically getting through 2005 season, but we thought we'd take a break because we haven't recorded an episode in a while, but there has been a renewed interest in our podcast. We're trying to figure out why. And I think we decided it was probably because there is a documentary on Apple TV that is of a similar name. And so people are looking for that. So we thought we'd just hop on the bandwagon. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewatch the of the Dynasty and talk about that instead. So we'll do a couple episodes on that, and then we'll get back to the regular season of 2005. With me this evening are my trusty, well, one of my trusty brothers, Greg Brown. Good to see you, bud.
Good evening, Andy. Great to see you. Very well.
Nice. I like the fit you have on today.
It's Celtics.
The Celtics hat for that looks like it's probably from the 80s, and also an England soccer jersey. Probably looks like it's from the 80s.
Dude, I just moved from one sport to the next.
Fair enough.
They're up, baby. It's playoff season.
No Bruins, huh?
And they stung me last year.
Fair.
I'm still hurt. Yeah,
that's fair. Didn't the Celtics also sting you last year?
Kind of, but not as much as the Bruins.
No, that is a fair play. All right, and we don't have Steve Brown because he is off gallivanting and potentially meeting Tom Brady tonight. So hopefully he puts in a good word for the podcast, and hopefully that doesn't get him kicked out of whatever event he's in. But also with us, we have our reliable Tim, the intern. Good to see you, Tim.
Good to see you too, guys.
Been a while. Yeah. So we're talking about the Dynasty, New England Patriots.
The controversial documentary.
Yes, exactly. So let's just go through how they portray themselves. And then we'll kind of talk about the first couple episodes here and maybe a little bit of some of the reaction that has come since this has been released.
Well, before we start here, right, we're going to segment this, right? A couple episodes at a time. So we're going to start with the first two here.
Yep.
So question, Andy, you've just seen the first two, right?
Correct.
Tim?
I watched the whole thing.
Whole thing. All right. Because that's going to play into this, I think, a little bit. I've seen up through like 4, I believe.
Okay.
So I think some of the controversial stuff is later on, but we'll try to isolate this podcast to what they discuss in the first two.
All right. Yeah, we'll do our best.
And maybe Tim will give some teasers.
Oh, all right.
Teaser Tim.
I really don't remember too much, but I do remember the things I got pissed off at. So those are the things I'll probably focus on.
That's all Tim wrote down. He's got a little hate list.
No, I didn't write down anything. I'm just thinking about trying to remember what aggravated me. So I'm in this podcast, I'm going to do my best Greg Brown impression.
Oh, that sounds like an Andy Brown impression. Your list of everything you hate.
Well, it's a little bit, I take a little bit of every brother. So
this is true. Yeah.
Yeah. I embody all of you guys as much as I can.
It's very weird, but it actually is.
It really is very strange.
All right. So let's talk about this documentary. You can find it on Apple TV if you want. It's called, like we said, the Patriots : the Dynasty : New England Patriots, which is kind of a strange name. But the little blurb that they give is, quote, "Go inside the franchise's 20-year journey from the unique chemistry that fueled 6 Super Bowl wins to the internal strife that sparked a turf war. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, and key players reveal the road to and cost of greatness." So, Tim, as somebody who's watched the whole thing, how do you feel that encapsulates the documentary?
I guess
is that a fair representation?
I guess it's a fair representation, but when you kind of get into the thick of it, it's like you can tell what message is trying to be portrayed. Like,
okay.
and I guess with every story there has to be a protagonist and an antagonist, and they make that very, very clear who is who.
That is what I've heard. Because do we want to talk about like media reaction and stuff like that now, or should we hold that off till later on?
Leave that to Greg.
Let's do a little bit now.
All right. So generally, it got kind of a mixed reaction, let's say. If you look up like the scores of this, like on IMDb, it got an 8.4 out of 10. But all the reviews, like anybody who wrote a review, gave it like 1 star and a negative review, that it was very biased. And kind of similar on Rotten Tomatoes, it got 100% critic rating, where as a documentary, the critics thought it was fantastic. But all of the reviews from those critics don't say anything about football whatsoever. It's more...
You can't trust Rotten Tomatoes, right? I think if anyone that's followed like the movie industry, Rotten Tomatoes is debunk.
Is it?
It's terrible. It's absolutely horrendous. Yeah, like there's so many movies out there now that are like the gap between the critic rating and the audience rating is so drastic that there's clearly some sort of like they're getting money from these companies to kind of fluff the rating. So I would take all that with a grain of salt, whatever you see on Rotten Tomatoes.
So is the viewer rating more representative of the actual rating? Because it got 100% critic rating, but a 53% viewer rating.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the famous one is the Dave Chappelle stand-up, the controversial one. It was like critics had it like a 10% and fans had it like a 90%. So it's like, if it is like a controversial topic too, I think that plays into it.
Yeah. I think there was, like Tim alluded to, a lot of kind of negative reaction from fans, especially. And the one thing that I remember seeing from one of the people that has watched it, who is kind of one of the more impartial people, was as he was watching it saying, asking the question, who is this for? Who is this documentary for? Because it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you would think Patriots fans would like. But the slant is so apparently negative that that turned off a lot of Patriots fans, but is this aimed towards non-Patriots fans who really may not give a shit what the behind the scenes of the Patriots dynasty actually was.
I think it's a lot of pandering. Like they're trying to touch every like facet to keep everyone interested, and I think in that, depending on who you are and how you feel about the Patriots, like there's either there's not enough that covers the team, there's too much negativity. Like there's just so many ways an opinion can go based on it. But I think if you're like someone that doesn't feel one way or another about the Patriots, I think like objectively, it's a good podcast. I mean, a good documentary, but for my taste, I wanted more. And obviously, we know that sports radio drone, but there was a lot with like this first episode where the guys that were actually reporting on it, like Felger was saying, like they tried to paint it out like, it was such a tough thing to move away from Drew and all this stuff, and a lot of people were like, that wasn't true at all. Everyone was happy when we made the transition from Bledsoe to Brady, because Bledsoe would just throw that like devastating interception at the end of the game just to ruin it for whatever comeback the Patriots might be making.
That's fair.
So what, do we think it's a hit piece? Because that's a lot of the chatter on Reddit. Kraft has made this a hit piece against Belichick, and I think part of it stems from this like Kraft Dynasty LLC thing.
Right.
That's the credits.
I mean, go ahead, Tim.
I was just gonna say it's like in The Godfather with I don't know who it is, but like it's a Rottweiler from the back seat to Belichick. Like it's just it's bad. That's a setup.
I mean, I think there's probably maybe something to that Kraft Dynasty LLC piece. The official word was that it's just a way for the Krafts to protect the actual footage that the documentary people used. It allowed them to use it, but not to actually like keep it for themselves, which makes sense. But also, does that make you beholden to what you put in it, right? If your access to this is given to you from the crafts, and does that make you want to make the crafts look good, which in turn is a way to make Belichick look bad?
Well, I mean, the way that crap comes out smelling like roses, and like, you know, if you break it down, everything that was good was a we, and everything that was bad was a he. So,
but the interesting piece, right, is obviously filmed over multiple years, right? So it's like they didn't know Bill was leaving. So it's not like Bill left and they're like, all right, let's release this hit piece. But I mean, obviously editing, you can do all sorts of narratives post production with editing and stuff like that. But I don't know. It feels like the intent maybe when they started was like, yeah, we'll try and make this documentary. And then once things got to where they were like, all right, you know, we can maybe make it craft look a little bit better here.
Yeah, and I think to your point about the editing, there's even like a lot of the players who participated in this, Matthew Slater and Rodney Harrison, Devin McCourty, all kind of said, you know, I sat down for, 2, 3, 4 hours of interviews, and they used, 2 minutes of what I said, and they pulled the most negative thing that I said about Belichick, and that's what they used,
I'd be
they
so
felt a little
pissed.
played about it.
I'd be so pissed if I had to. He's like, I had to travel to New York, Harrison. He's like, I sat for 6 hours and they used like a 3-second bit from his interview. It's like, well, why
exactly?
Yeah.
So, so it sounds like there's been a lot of negative reaction from Patriots fans and even some people who were involved in this, or even people who weren't. Kyle Van Noy was asked if he was in it. He said no, but thank God I wasn't, because it looks like a hatchet job. And Dante Scarnecchia said basically something similar. They asked him if he had watched it, and he said no, I don't plan on it, for similar reasons. So as somebody who is the resident Belichick apologist, I'm going to go into this with as much of an open mind as I can. That's what I've told myself. So I think with that being said, I think let's jump into, we're going to do the first 2 episodes. Episode 1 is called Backup Plan, and I'll read the little blurb on that. It says, after Drew Bledsoe suffers a devastating injury, Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick put the hopes of the franchise in 6th-round draft pick Tom Brady. So we'll do that one. We'll do episode 2, which is titled The Snowball. Belichick shocks the world by doubling down on Brady. An icy showdown with the Oakland Raiders redefines what's possible for the Patriots. So we're getting not even all the way through the 2001 season in the first 2 episodes that are about 45 hour long, something like that. So let's start at the beginning, I guess. I was a little surprised that it just started with Kraft buying the team. And it was just like a quick blurb about the like from the press conference where they're introducing him, and then you just talk about, they showed a couple of newspaper articles and then moved on from there. It was yeah, exactly. The paper boy.
But he's a local fan, Andy.
He is, and I'll give him credit for that.
Hero.
And I will still give him credit for all that stuff about not moving the team and the shrewd way that he was able to buy the team, which I thought they would touch on more, because having read the Dynasty book that this is based on, like the whole first couple chapters was on how Kraft was able to buy the team, because it was actually kind of a pretty shrewd business move about buying the land and buying the parking and all this stuff, and then basically not allowing the team to be moved, and forcing them to sell to him.
That's what drives me crazy. Like, Kraft in these first 2 episodes just strikes me as like a corporate PR release. You know what I'm saying? And that might just be not like him trying to be strategic, but that's just how he is all the time, because he's the owner of a football team. But all this shit about I was a fan, I just wanted to no, you didn't. He wanted to make money like any other businessman in the world. Let's be real. Let's call it what it is. And that's like, you find that everywhere you go. Like my company, we want to save lives because we're medical. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You care about the bottom line, and that's it.
It's true. It's true.
I don't agree with that. I do think initially, he was a fan, but I think that you pushing that down my fucking throat time and time and time again. And now he just does that all the time. Whenever he's talking, I know this is getting away from it, but the things that happen now, he's like, well, as a fan and da-da-da, and I am a fan. Hey, don't forget. Hey, no, I'm a fan too. So this affects me. Shut the fuck up. I don't care. I don't give a shit. You make way more money than I do. Spend some of that goddamn money that you had, put it in the team.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, that's fair, especially with the whole
hate run through you, baby.
It's boring, baby.
I mean, especially with the whole the report card that came out about the teams and the owners and the coaches and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know anything about that. Oh, you run the fucking team, but you didn't know a goddamn thing about that. You didn't know that there was no child care for your players.
Right. Even though the exact same report came out last year too, and they got similarly bad grades. They actually went down this year.
Yep.
That's bad.
It's not a good look. No, it's not.
I'm glad they did that. I thought that was really interesting, the report card thing.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I like it. And that came out in week 5, and he tried to say 3 weeks ago that he had just heard about it. Dude, what are you talking about?
Then you're a bad owner.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. You should be waiting for that thing to come out so you can figure out what to do.
Yeah. Having said that, it could be worse. You could have Lamar Hunt as your owner.
He actually wants to move the team to Dallas too.
Oh, I'm sure he does. But he's not going to be able to move it to Dallas, but he might be able to move it somewhere.
Or Art Modell, dude. That was going to be one of the I had notes here, dude. There's a scene in this where they're talking about Belichick back in Cleveland in the first episode, and how that all went sour, and then they moved the team. Mm-hmm. And there's a clip there of them, some of the fans hanging Art Modell in effigy.
Yeah. Art Modell and Bill Belichick.
Yeah. Imagine
Art Modell
getting hung in effigy.
Art Modell, I get. Bill Belichick? Art Modell's moving the team, your beloved team. Bill Belichick, he's the coach. He doesn't have a choice in the matter. He's just
hanging anybody in effigy, Andy, is ridiculous.
That's true.
I'm anti-fans hanging people in effigy over football. Okay.
So you're telling me all this work that I put together with a Greg Brown effigy is for naught.
Yeah. Imagine what would happen if someone did that nowadays.
Oh, you get canceled so fast.
Hung someone in effigy, how nuts the whole social media would go.
I'm a little surprised nobody hung Brady in effigy, to be honest.
I know. Maybe we should do it. Who should we hang?
Kraft.
Yeah. That's what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah. That would go down well. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I was a little surprised by that that Cleveland section of Belichick. Because
but that just it shows you that's those are the little breadcrumbs of all right, here it comes, and we're gonna
it's not blatant, but it's just it's not factually wrong, but you cherry pick certain things and angle it one way or another.
Yeah, because I actually just finished reading the Belichick biography by a guy who didn't actually manage to talk to Bill Belichick, but whatever.
Yeah.
It had a lot about his Cleveland stuff in there. And there was a lot of Belichick had made some mistakes and whatnot, first time coach and all that garbage. But I think him moving on from Bernie Kosar and bringing Vinny Testaverde was surprisingly similar to this Brady Bledsoe decision. And it was the right one then too, but it's just one of those things where when he says I do what's best for the team, he's not saying that as some sort of just rote response to shut the media up. I think that's just literally what he believes, and that's just his motivation for everything he does.
Yeah, take some balls too, right? Because it backfired on the first time, and then it comes around to the second time. And he has the balls to just do it again. Say what you want. That took some nuts.
And what was his quote? Something about I do what's best for the team. TEAM team. like just spelling it out.
Yeah, I guess he did do it again, right, with Brady on the way out. That didn't really work.
Yeah.
So he's 1 for 3.
Yeah, I guess
So
Best coach
Greg,
ever.
better than anybody else.
Has this, like, watching these first few episodes, has it changed your opinion on Bill Belichick at all?
I'm actually like a little more soft on him.
Same here.
I just because you know what? I thought about it too, and I was like, it's like when you have like a family member that's driving you crazy, and you're like, I'll go and complain to my other family members and be like, this guy's driving me crazy. But if someone from the outside is like, your family member sucks, I'm like, yo, fuck you, dude. No, he doesn't. You know?
He's talking about me, I'm pretty sure.
You know what I mean, though, right? Like someone you're allowed to. Well, you know what else did that when those U.S. athletes went to the Olympics and they did like the kneeling thing, or they were getting booed and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? We're allowed to complain about America. You fucking Europeans are not allowed to do it. Okay.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, I used to do that when I was in England. I would get drunk and argue about people, argue with Europeans about George Bush. I'm like, no, you don't get to say shit about George Bush. I get to say shit about George Bush.
That's right.
But if you say shit about George Bush, we will bomb the fuck out of your country.
Right, dude. Kick in the door.
Cut that.
That's right. I will say this started with a bang. A minute and a half in, there was some choice quotes from Bill Belichick. First was, there's going to be some things that aren't fucking great, which I feel like we need is just like a drop for this podcast, because that's just so Bill Belichick.
And
the other one,
he's saying that as he's being like interviewed for the documentary.
No, that was just like in the locker room.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
just yeah. And then the other one was this was him being interviewed, I think, and it was how do you make history? You win, not twice. You win again and again. I'm like, fuck it, like, yeah.
He's so charismatic though in those interviews.
Yeah, I think that was on purpose. Though, yeah.
Like a suit that fits, or maybe it's just his body is just weirdly shaped, which I think it is. But
I think it is. Yeah,
looks wrong. The way he like sits back in his chair and it's like he looks extremely uncomfortable.
Frumpy and disheveled.
And on top of that, one of the things I noticed was, you know, they show these like clips of, you know, back in the day, back in the early 2000s, and everybody looks younger except Bill Belichick. He looks exactly the fucking same.
Yep.
Looks the same in 2001 as he does today.
Just dated clothing.
Yeah. Also, yeah, speaking of his clothing, one of the things they were showing him in Cleveland, like drawing something up on the chalkboard, and it looked like he was wearing something made out of a black trash bag. It was like like almost like a shirt or something, but it just looked like it was made out of black trash bag material.
That's style in, Andy. Yeah.
Was it? It was a style.
Leica? Is that Leica?
I don't know. I've never seen it before, but God, he did not look good in that. Jesus. I mean, to be fair, he's not exactly a fashion icon, but that was one of his rougher looks, which is surprising to me because he's got a lot of them.
I would disagree with that. He's definitely a fashion icon. He made the hoodie. He's the hoodie.
Yeah, but he's like an anti-icon though, or an anti-fashion icon.
Well,
you know what I mean?
It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not doing this to be cool, and then he makes it cool.
Yeah, that's true.
Because he's so anti-fashion that he made it
Yeah,
fashionable.
good point. All right. I think we should probably talk a bit about Drew Bledsoe because a lot of this was focused around him.
He's a man.
I gotta say he has a great sense of humor about all of this.
Yeah.
And again, kind of going off of Tim's question about how do you feel about Bill Belichick? I watched it. How do you feel about Drew Bledsoe after watching this?
I love him.
I fucking love Drew.
Absolutely love him. I didn't love him so much as a player, if I remember correctly. I remember he was frustrating to watch, but as a guy, I can't find anything wrong with him.
I always remember Mom talking about how she thought Parcells ruined Drew Bledsoe because her thing was Parcells wanted a downfield passing game. And I'm too young to remember if this was the case or not. So I'm going off of what she says. But so Tom would basically have to, or Drew would have to stand in the pocket and, you know, take a bunch of extra hits. And that kind of ruined his kind of what they had touched on in this episode. It kind of ruined him later on in his career, where if he saw pressure, he would just kind of like turtle on it towards the end of his Patriots, and probably the rest of his career too, just because he'd taken so many shots.
But what else was he supposed to do? He couldn't run.
Yeah,
he was surprisingly mobile for his size, at least earlier on. So I remember when we first started doing this podcast, I had started with the 2000 season, and seeing him on the move was surprising, but he did it more than you remember, and he was shockingly effective at it for a big, giraffe-looking dude.
Who's his comp? Who would you comp him to as a runner?
Ryan Tannehill.
I mean, if you're saying Ryan Tannehill, that's a good. He's pretty effective as a.
Yeah, kind of like a taller, heavier Ryan Tannehill, I would say.
Okay.
Like he could kind of lower the boom, but wasn't. He was kind of awkward about it,
Okay. And I agree with Mama Brown's take then.
Yeah. But like in this, they were talking about he was talking about how when the game got towards the end and it was crunch time, that's when things would slow down for him, and he would get. That's where he felt like he was playing at his best, which I think there are, especially earlier in his career when he went to the Super Bowl in 96, 97. There are examples of that. And then, there were some games under Parcells where the game where I think he set the record for attempts against
Vikings.
The Vikings. Yeah. And that comeback win. So I could see that. And so the documentary, who I was asking the questions in the documentary was saying, so it's kind of like in the that same category as Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan and those kind of guys. He's like, yeah, most people put me in the same category as Tiger and Jordan.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
He's got a great personality.
Yeah. Humility. But what I liked about it too was because they went through the whole he gets hurt and then he's healthy again. They're not playing him, and I thought throughout the whole thing, they showed a lot of the interviews too, and he was very open about being upset about it.
Yeah.
Without throwing anybody under the bus or without being no, fuck Bill Belichick, fuck Tom Brady. He still was like, I'm going to help the team win, but I'm clearly not pleased with it, which it's a hard line to walk, but I thought he did it perfectly.
Yeah, it was very classy.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no other.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you couldn't have handled it any better. There's no other way to handle that better.
Yeah, because I feel like at the time, I mean, I was only, I think I was only like 8 or 9 years old, but at the time, I remember him, I feel like he got a lot of unfair bashing for the way that he responded, because obviously his body language isn't the most cheery, but I mean, when you think about it, the guy just got paid $100 million to be the franchise quarterback, and then he could have died, literally could have died on the field.
Yes.
For what happened, and I think in hindsight it looks a lot better, because it's he really and the way that he was for Brady, he was a great mentor to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he didn't just kind of not he didn't check out and just let Brady flail in the wind. He definitely. Yeah. Although there was a quote from him. Tom Brady was not the guy I was worried about in preseason. Oops.
But he's saying that in retrospect too, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You'd a year ago, so he's he knows that's a ridiculous quote.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He also had a quote when he woke up with a tube in his chest. He said, "Well, that's not good." It's an understatement, but you nearly died, and if they had to give you, I remember from the actual the book, talking about it was his one of his arteries got severed by, I think, a broken rib. It was hit so hard. And his lung cavity was filling up with blood. And so basically, if they, to get to it, they were either going to have to try drain it with just a tube that would pump the blood from where it wasn't supposed to be back to where it was. And if that didn't work, they'd have to cut open his chest muscles to get to it and drain it that way. And if they had done that, basically his football career would have been over, because he would have had to be recovering from that as a thrower of football would have been unbelievably difficult. So he was like inches away from never playing football again, and also dying.
It's not that bad, dude. 2 liters of blood. That's the same amount Kelly lost giving birth to our son.
That's crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
That's a lot of blood.
They
Jesus.
mentioned that on the thing. I was like, oh, 2 liters. I remember the doctor telling me that. That's how much
Wow.
Kelly.
That's a lot of blood.
Ain't no documentaries about her.
On a more positive note,
yeah.
On a more positive note, they did talk about Bledsoe pranking Tom Brady as a rookie, and somehow they managed to get a like the dye that they put on like dollar bills and stuff at banks, like the stuff that you don't see it until it gets wet and then it stains like for good. And so they got that and put it in Tom Brady's socks. So as soon as he started sweating, it turned his entire, like both his feet purple for 2 weeks.
You think that actually happened?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. No, I've heard some stories in the past of, I think Drew Bledsoe being a bit of a prank kind of guy, along with Matt Light.
I bet they
and
actually
Tom Brady.
did it, not to Brady.
I bet they did to Brady. He was a rookie. They just did it to him because he was a rookie, not because he's Tom Brady. But he was also try hard from the sounds of it.
Yeah,
I got a lot of. I didn't think that happened out of this.
Really?
Also, you want to hear my hottest? I don't think that happened.
Okay.
The Kraft quote: "The Tom Brady walked up to me and said, I'm the best thing this franchise has ever done."
Yeah.
I think that's fake.
I've heard Brady walk it back a little bit. He's like, I don't know if that was my exact words, but
yeah, exactly, dude.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It makes for a good story, but
Kraft said that. Dude. Like in like
every interview.
Interviews, yeah.
Yeah. Whenever Brady's name comes up, that's the story that's his go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about Tom Brady then. Let's segue to that, because I think, that was the other big piece. The whole kind of thing was centered around this Drew Bledsoe getting hurt. The team struggled. They went 5-11 the year before, and they're 0-2 on the season to start, which I don't even think they mentioned, but that's fine. And now they're giving the reins to an untested guy who's never started a football game in the NFL. Was the fourth stringer coming in. But you're able to kind of see that Tom Brady wasn't the Tom Brady that we know now. And they made that blatantly clear in this episode. Apparently he gave a speech to the team after getting a starting job like that in week 3, like before week 3. He's like, believe in me, guys, we've got this. And then they cut to Teddy Bruschi being like, oh, look at the kid, he's trying.
Yeah, I thought the other players were the best part of the documentary. Like Ty Law, like,
oh my God.
Teddy. All their quotes were like awesome.
Ty Law. This is the NFL, buddy. You're going back to the bench.
Yeah.
Well, because Brady came up to him like after, I don't know, whatever game it was.
I'm not giving this job back.
Yeah.
Like,
and they cut to Ty Law, Lloyd Moore, Lloyd, and they're both just like, whatever, kid.
Go get him, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Ty Law, I love the way that they talked about Ty Law. He sold Tom Brady his condo. He's like, young kid, just made the team, doesn't have a lot of money, so I sold it to him for cheap. And then they cut Tom Brady. He's like, he said he gave it to me for cheap. He ripped me the fuck off. Go back and forth.
No, he owes him $150,000.
Yeah.
I want this.
I did like that, how it was kind of, it showed like videos of him kind of like getting drunk and having a good time and
being one of the guys.
How competitive he was about the Tecmo Bowl.
Yes. Yeah. Or about everything, literally everything.
Yeah.
Which
well, how he stomp on the ground or whatever.
I have a hot take.
Fake.
Is Tom Brady a psychopath?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, probably.
No, like a legitimate
Jordan.
like.
Yeah, Jordan is, right? Tiger is.
Yeah.
Like
Brady.
I feel like
go ahead.
It's just like this hyper competitive perfectionist for his entire life. Like I don't think that's something you can learn. I think that's just almost your brain I'm not gonna say it's broken, but it's definitely working differently than a normal person. It's what's the word they use? Not neurotypical. Yeah, neurodivergent. Thank you.
You're a little
think
divergent, Andy.
A little.
Yeah.
I'm a lot neurodivergent, but thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. Thanks for catching that for me.
Yep, no problem, dude. Just keeping you honest.
I don't know. I think how like think about it if you have a friend like that. That's like you can't play games with them because they're just
they will never lose.
Tantrum. Yeah.
Mark forever.
Like, let's go again. Let's go again. Like, dude, no, you lost. You lost.
Yeah. How he learned he could stomp on the floor to reset the Nintendo so that he would never lose. Like, I'm not playing you again.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of people out there that are like that, but just aren't skilled enough.
Yeah, they're just not good at football or good at sports. Yeah. I've known a few over the years. Yeah. And you can be like that as a fucking coder, but you're not going to get anywhere in life because nobody gives a shit. Like, I'm a better coder than you. It's like, congratulations. You worked 80 hours this week. I worked 40. Like, yeah. Okay.
That's who old Facebook guy, huh, Andy?
Oh, he's also neurodivergent, pretty sure. No?
Oh, yeah. I don't even think he's human. I think he's just sort of robot sentient being.
That's what I'm saying. I think all these people, I mean, Elon Musk, he's probably in that same boat. Bezos, dude's a psychopath.
Boy, are we getting political here?
Who are we talking about?
Trumpy?
I mean, I thought we were talking about successful people, but yeah, all right. He's definitely a psychopath too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like all those like billionaires, they're nuts. I think you have to be the best at what you want. I think there is some. I think there is some to that because I
don't even know.
Looking at his history, looking at Robert Kraft's history, like he took over his in-laws paper business, but then took some like outrageous chances to make it grow as fast and as quickly as it did. So I do think there's probably some drive in him as well.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of, what are you saying?
It's a shame I don't have that.
Yeah, none of us do. It's not a Brown family trait, which is why I'm shocked that this podcast has lasted as long as it has.
It takes some pretty frequent breaks, so
we do now, yeah. There was a lot of shots of Boston sports media in this first episode, especially. Some young-looking dudes who no longer look young.
He didn't look young.
Who?
Bob Ryan.
Oh yeah, he didn't look young, but I don't think he ever has.
100 years.
Exactly, yeah. But there was that like round table, whatever show that was, with Bob Ryan arguing with I can't even remember who it was. Talking about how like I can't believe you're trying to start a quarterback controversy. Like Drew Bledsoe is definitely the starter when he comes back. Like there's no question about it.
Yeah.
Like you're fucking typical Boston sports. Like nothing has changed. But that's what their bread and butter was. Is like the Patriots are going to fail, so may as well just like stick your foot in the ground, dig your heels in the ground, and just wait till it comes true because it always did. So this is kind of what they're used to, and this is the beginning of the change of like, oh shit, actually. And then they're talking about when Belichick was announced Brady's a starter, we were all surprised after that Rams game because that was when Bledsoe was announced that he was medically cleared to come back, was to play in that game. Belichick announced that Brady would start. Brady threw 2 picks and they lost to the Rams at home. And so there was, I remember from doing our podcast, there was some quote from, I think it was Bob Ryan about, why leave the Cadillac in the garage when, or why are you driving the Honda around town when you have the Cadillac in the garage or something like that. Bob Ryan.
I mean, we also do look at that with the, revisionist history. Like we know who Tom Brady is now. So
yeah,
that's true. But it was
I remember watching that game and thinking like this was a pretty good result. They lost by 7 to the defending
world champs. Yeah,
the best team in the NFL. I was like, you know what? We hung in there.
Mm-hmm.
You expected to lose. You're hoping you weren't losing by double digits, and they did.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking like that was a positive step, but they obviously framed it different here.
Oh, Greg, are you is that a moral victory quote from you?
Well, if you want to go truly in depth in the game, you can listen to our podcast.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. All these games mentioned, full breakdown.
Full breakdown of all these games. That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
Because one of my early criticisms, a light criticism of this, and I understand why, but I thought this was very light on the actual games. There was no mention, like they just kind of showed a couple of, like they talked about that first week that Brady was starting, about how Willie McGinnis was there. He's like, we can't give up any points this week, right? And then they show all the highlights of the game, but they don't actually like tell you anything about it. It's just like, oh, look, here's Otis Smith returning an interception, and here's Ty Law returning. Like, oh, by the way, both of those were touchdowns.
Didn't even show Ty Law.
Oh, that's right. They didn't show Ty Law. Yeah, they showed a sack or something. Yeah.
I was taken aback. I was appalled.
Right. Oh no, they showed the Brian Cox hit, and then the Otis Smith return.
Antoine Smith rush, and that was it.
Yeah. And then they cut to Belichick being like, well, Tom was making the plays he needed to make, which was converting basically every third. Like he completed like 7 passes, and 5 of them were third down conversions for a first down. I mean, it's kind of like he was doing what he needed to do, but yeah, it was more than that. And wait
till you get to episode 3, Andy. You're going to be like,
all right,
skipping games is the least of our worries.
No, I think I've heard.
We talk about skipping championship seasons, bro.
I know. So yeah, I mean, that was something that, like, I get it, because if this isn't aimed at like, necessarily football fans, it's aimed at like the broader audience, and you don't want to bore them with all that. But like, they showed a little bit of the Chargers game, and it was Brady's first ever touchdown pass to Terry Glenn, who hasn't been mentioned once.
Glenn. Yeah.
And 2, it was his first comeback win, which was his 3rd game of his career, a week after getting the doors blown off him in Miami. So like there's some kind of like coming into this game against the Rams, like there was some good and there was some bad. But they're basically saying like, oh, he hasn't done anything yet, but they're still starting him, and making it seem like this was a bigger, almost a bigger deal, like Tim was saying, than it actually was at the time. Because I went back and looked at our notes that we had from that time, and there was a poll in the Boston Globe about, this was after the Rams game, and there was a poll of who should be the starting quarterback, and Brady was favored before the game. They said, fans said 78% said that Brady should be the starting quarterback. And after the game, 65% still said Brady should be the quarterback.
Wow.
So more than the majority thought Brady should be the quarterback after the Rams game, even though he threw 2 picks and they lost. So they kind of portrayed this in the documentary as like, oh, well, nobody thought he would stick with Brady. It's like, what? Actually, everybody wanted him to stick with Brady.
Yeah. So I think
except for the sports media.
Yeah, I think the way that they've set it up is just like, that's like an ode to Drew Bledsoe, and like they're just playing that up like he was like a son to me, and this is that, like, and that's the stuff that irritates me about Kraft, is like how he tries to portray everything as like family and all that stuff. It's just like it falls on deaf ears.
He was like a son to me. Said that.
Everyone's a son to you, dude. You kiss everyone. You're kissing so many dudes. It's so annoying.
I'm just gonna say,
dudes, it's so annoying.
yeah, we'll have to isolate that one.
There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just like, so many.
Oh boy. I'll just say this: every place I've worked at that's had that, like, we're family here, has been a terrible place to work. It's been super toxic.
That's where you get pizza. That's where you get pizza for a company.
That's where you get,
You got to work the weekend, but we'll get you pizza on Saturday night.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is.
It's pizza from the night before. It's leftover.
Yeah.
Oh no, I got a gift certificate to a Chinese fast food place that didn't exist up here near me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I gave it back. I think it was Panda Express, something like that. Like, oh, here's $50 Panda Express. I'm like, I don't have one of these in my state.
None in the area.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna give this back to you, and you can give it to somebody who like could use this. Is what I did.
That's kind of like what the appeal of Belichick was, though, right? Is that it's not a family thing, right? He'll cut you tomorrow if in the interest of the team. But if you play well, you get the chance.
Yes.
And he's not going to play favorites because he likes this guy over that guy personally, So I think that I didn't feel like they kind of touched on it, but it's definitely how Kraft was portraying the organization.
I agree. And I think I've been listening to Julian Edelman's podcast the last couple episodes because he had
rip off of our podcast.
Yes, which we'll get to. Stolen Valor. But he had Ernie Adams on, which is a great listen. And right now it's the one with Ty Law. And just hearing, Ty Law wasn't a huge, didn't always see eye to eye with Belichick, let's say, especially when it came to contracts. And so he's telling all these contract stories and stuff, and they're hilarious. But at the end of it, he's like, I had so much respect for Bill Belichick. And, Edelman was asking him, you played for all these other teams. You played for Parcells and Pete Carroll, and you played for the Jets and the Chiefs. What was it like here? And he's like, I have never been more well prepared in my entire career than when I was under Belichick. With Parcells, because when he was with Parcells, Belichick was the DB's coach, and Belichick basically would tell him, if the wide receiver lines up outside the numbers here, he's going to run a curl. And Ty Law's like, I don't want to end up on the wrong side of a highlight, right? What if he runs an out and up? And he's like, I guarantee he won't. If he does, it's on me. So just, jump on the curl. And he did, and he got an interception. And he's like, from then on, Belichick was my guy because he always put me in the right position. And so I think it's not just that, the best players will start, but Belichick will put every player in the best position to be their best self. And then from that, all the best players start, which you can see, the Mike Vrabels of the world and whatnot. So, yeah, there's not a lot of that in here. But if you want to hear more of it, yeah, you can listen to some other podcasts like, the Patriots Dynasty podcast for one, or the ripoff of it that Julian Edelman has started.
No shade. All the shade.
Exactly. No shade unless he comes on. All right, let's talk about the second episode.
I had a couple more notes on the first episode.
All right, give them to me.
Within the first 2 minutes, we had Silverface Fan, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
making a terrible analogy, saying that in Boston, when you grow up, they take the pacifier out of your mouth and replace it with the yelling voice.
Right.
Which doesn't make any sense. You don't replace an object with a
no. Also, he said the Patriots have been terrible all the way through, even though that's not necessarily true.
The Super Bowl they went to was
two other Super Bowls I went to, but it's fine.
Also, there was an older clip of here's when the Pats sucked, and it was a guy in the stands, and he was like, "You want the cheerleaders to go out there and play for you?" It's classic 80s
with the hardest Boston accent you've ever heard.
Dude, hell yeah!
You want the cheerleaders to go out there with you?
Dude. We'll get the fucking cheerleaders out there.
Yeah, exactly. Guy, what are you doing, Guy?
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, there was some hard Boston accents there. Yeah, I saw the same thing. Also, they kept interviewing, obviously they had the Silverface guy, but they had other guys that were just they were fans of the teams. Who are these people? They're just
Bill Burr on there too.
They did have Bill Burr, but they had these other guys just I don't.
Yeah, dudes. Yeah.
Are you famous that I don't know about, or you're just fans and they're just putting you on? I don't understand.
They probably interviewed those guys for 6 hours too, and then clip.
Right, yeah, and that was just it.
Yeah.
Oh God. All right. Anything else from episode 1, or should we just roll right into the snowball?
Snowball.
All right.
Roll it.
The snowball that is, Greg. I believe you have said the one game that you would go back to witness in person if you could, over any other sporting event.
That was that question to a lot of people. If you could go back to any historical sports game ever, what game would you go to?
I have a hard time coming up with one that's better than the snowball.
And even
as a Patriot fan,
I'd go to Pele winning the World Cup. I have no connection to that. I'm sure it'd be a cool scene, but
right,
you consider the environment, the snow, the emotional connection I have to the Patriots, that being the start of everything, and then the way they won it, it's it's just
it being the last game in that stadium too.
Last game
the send off of the
that is the coolest Patriots game that's ever been played.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Oh, Tim, that was
Tim, what do you got then?
I mean, when you add up all the factors, yeah, that's pretty cool. But I mean, like 28-3, that over 28-3.
Well, the Seahawks Super Bowl.
But like we'd already won Super Bowls at that point. Like,
yeah,
that one felt more like a thank God.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it was awesome. Don't get me wrong.
Well, no, it felt more alien because like nobody had ever done that before.
Yeah, and we got so lucky in it. Like
that's definitely a top 5, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure,
definitely.
Or the Seattle one was pretty amazing too.
I would say that's probably I would put that number 2.
Yeah,
because that really is the thing that kicked everything off. It was like, that's when, I don't know. It was just like we were like untouchable. Like we kept screwing up, and then we were like, it just felt like it was one of those things for where, like just everything that's happened in Boston sports, like the Buckner thing, that type of thing. That's how it felt.
Right.
That the Tuck rule happened, and we just end up.
And then as soon as it got overturned, you're like, oh, this is different all of a sudden. Yeah, it's never been like this before.
I felt weird. I'm like, this isn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, and then they score a touchdown right after it, and it's like, what? Wait, what? This isn't how this goes. Like, the Patriots should have squandered that chance too.
Yeah, and then to think about the
dumping snow.
The field goals that he kicked in the conditions that they were is like just it's still mind-boggling to me.
Is that first one to force overtime, the 48-yarder, is that the greatest kick in NFL history?
Yeah. There has not been one that has been on a had a bigger meaning to it, like in terms of pressure.
Yeah,
exactly. With more adverse conditions. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the legacy of it too, right? Where it ends up being the start of this whole thing.
Yeah. And that kick is what's kind of like that kick is always pointed to as like the beginning of the dynasty, right?
They had that Justin Tucker one where he set the record on the doink. That's like probably the hardest of all the kicks.
Yeah, but it was also like in a week 12 game against the fucking Detroit Lions. Whatever. Yeah. Great, you beat the Lions. Congrats.
Yeah, Ty Law said they should take his Vinatieri's cleat and put it on the front of a car like a Rolls Royce.
That's exactly what he said. Yeah, they should literally bronze his foot, like his actual foot, and just like they should put Adam's foot on the hood of your car like a Rolls Royce.
Yeah, that should be honestly his foot should be at the top of that stupid lighthouse.
Get up there, baby.
They should bronze it and do that.
All right, we're going to reach out to Adam Vinatieri and see if we can get a cast made of his foot. And
we'll take the real thing, boy.
I'll put it on my
sacrifices have to be made, Andy.
I'll put it on my car. I'm not gonna lie.
Cryogenically freeze his leg.
That'd be great. Yeah, he doesn't need it. I mean, I will say, Vinatieri in these things, boy is looking yoked these days.
Oh yeah,
that dude is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I feel like I remember reading like his son is like a weightlifter or something like that, and so he lifts weights with his son. And so he got like super into it, I think. But like, dude is jacked.
Silver Fox too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But just like you can kind of see why Belichick or Parcells was like calling him a football player, not a kicker. It's like one of the best football players that we've had on our team at the time.
Yeah.
Chased down Herschel Walker.
Yeah, he ran down Herschel Walker.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you have not seen that clip, it is stop what you're doing right now and look at it.
It's wild.
Because it's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, he literally ran.
Literally chasing Herschel Walker from behind and catching him. It's insane.
On a kick return. That probably should have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to get to the positives of this episode too first. And the biggest positive was the fact that Ernie Adams was in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm coming to realization that I might be a young Ernie Adams. Because the first two clips of him talking, the first one was him throwing shade on the media, being like, oh, yeah, the media likes to write. They're scribes. They write, but they don't actually know what they're talking about. When it came to like the Bledsoe Brady decision, it's like, yeah, no, we all knew what we're doing. Like it was obviously Brady. And like we had been seeing Brady in practice for, ages. And like we saw his preparation. We thought he would be the guy to run this offense. We were super comfortable with it, but the media
like, if you're not a player or a coach, you don't know what you're talking about or something like that.
Which is 100% true.
Yeah.
And then the second thing was he was talking about, they showed him getting into his base model Subaru from his little Boston townhouse, and then turning on sports radio, and he'd be like, I turn on sports radio once every 6 months, and then I turn it off after 30 seconds after realizing what I've done.
We've all been there.
Yeah, I love it. So it's me. Apparently me and Ernie Adams are the same neurodivergence, I think. But he also was talking about the weather. Like, he was driving to the stadium, and everybody on talk radio was talking about how the Patriots didn't really have a chance because this Raiders team was the better team. And he's like, you know what? 100% true. And that's actually what he's said about the Rams Super Bowl as well. That the Rams were the better team, but the Patriots were lucky that they had played them already once. So they knew they didn't have to take, he said, they didn't have to take a quarter to figure out what wasn't going to work and then adjust, because they could already adjust to what didn't work in the first game, which was basically, they said that they were just going to, I think probably what the Rams did to the Patriots in 2007 was just play pass every down. They're going to defend the pass every down. Just like if they ran it, great. We don't care. Give them 8 yards on every run. But we're just going to play every first down as if they're going to throw the ball, put all our best pass rushers out there and just harass the shit out of the entire pass offense, which worked. But in this game, he was talking about how, as he's driving to the stadium, the first flakes of snow started falling. And it apparently was the first real snowfall they had all winter that year, which I don't remember because, 2000 was a long time ago, but I trust Ernie Adams when he says it. And so it kind of felt like fate, like the weathermen were kind of doing the Patriots a solid by throwing a whole bunch of snow at this high-paced West Coast team, having to come all the way across the country and deal with the snow, which the Patriots are, or people in New England in general are just more used to.
But even that, it dumped. Like, think about how many times it's truly dumped.
Yeah, during a game. It doesn't do that during a game.
3 or 4 that come to mind where it was like, holy shit, it's snowing like crazy.
Yeah.
Just happened to be in this game is just like, it just adds to the whole mystique of it. And
it felt like fate. And exactly.
It's football, baby. It's hard not to be romantic about the snowball. It's just such a fucking game.
I agree. And also, I thought it was interesting when they talked to Robert Kraft about the snow. He said, we cleared the snow under the letter of the law, but we cleared as little as possible because we knew that it gave us an advantage. Fuck, that's no wonder I couldn't see anything in terms of lines or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because it's coming down, but you could see the guy with the snowblowers, but they were just literally just blowing the lines, and that was it.
And now all the fields get the heaters underneath, so it's probably one of the only times you'll ever see that anymore.
Yeah. Also, great Ernie Adams quote, because they're talking about Drew Bledsoe, and this was the episode where they're talking about how Bledsoe had gotten hit a lot over his career, and that kind of caused him to freeze, and so that's kind of Bledsoe might not be the guy, even though Kraft had already given him this deal. Once Belichick came in and brought his guys in, they're like, Bledsoe might not be the guy. And Ernie Adams' quote was, he looks like a wildebeest under attack, which I think is pretty apropos. Yeah, that's a very good analogy of watching Drew Bledsoe try to avoid a sack. He's kind of right at the end, he just kind of gives up and just is waiting for the inevitable of being thrown to the ground.
We used to talk about that a lot early Brady days too, the escapability factor.
Yeah.
Right? Where it used to be the movement within the pocket. He was not athletic, but he could keep his eyes downfield and shift and feel the rusher from behind.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
That's an underrated part of his game that we talked about a lot early in his career, and then it kind of dropped off. But he was
I don't think it did. I think it was one of those things where
I don't think the skill did. I just think people stopped talking about it.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah. Until
I think his knee was once he had that injury too, that kind
of
true. He kind of got away from that and had to kind of relearn all that stuff. Because I think in 13 or 14 he picked that right back up, and that was a big talking point again.
Yeah, I remember 2009 watching him be he's scared of phantom pressure basically through that, especially the first half of 2009. He was not the same Tom Brady in the pocket.
That's what Mac Jones didn't have.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of things he doesn't.
The Mac Jones game against Dallas last year was like,
Mm.
look at the tape and it's like, oh my God.
Mac Jones was Drew Bledsoe at his worst. Like, that's a wildebeest under attack, dude.
Oh yeah. Which to
Not
be
a
fair, he
wildebeest.
was.
It's more like a ferret under attack.
He was under attack for sure.
Oh boy.
For sure.
Speaking of Tom Brady, though, there were some good Brady quotes in here. This is the part where I kind of like came to the conclusion that he's a psychopath. But there's like a video of him in high school talking about how I think I need to work on my speed a little bit. Because they're like, oh, I've got. They're asking him, oh, what are your qualities as a quarterback? He's like, well, I think I have a pretty strong arm, but I think I need to work on my speed a little bit. Well, you ran a slower 40.
Yeah, he didn't work on that, I guess.
You ran a slower 40 than Vince Wilfork did, but you know.
He's faster now. He's running
he ran it faster.
and he does that.
Yeah,
you know what? It was still slower than Vince Wilfork's.
I'm sure.
Yeah, barely. But yeah, but you know, they're talking about how there was the 5-dot drill or something that everybody hated to do, and Brady like drew the 5 dots on his driveway so he could do it at home, like in high school, so he could get quicker feet and stuff like that. And yeah, this is all the talk about his sisters. Like all his older sisters were all athletic, and you know they were just like Tom would be competitive about everything, and if he didn't win, he would be just like fucking miserable the rest of the day. Like, yeah.
Wish I had athletic siblings. I really could have gone somewhere.
I'm the only reason you went anywhere in the first place.
Poor Greg.
Imagine if I had taken it easy on you.
They could be making documentaries about me, Andy.
Oh, don't worry, they will, Greg.
One day.
It'll be the same sort of hatchet job here.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of interesting stuff about kind of Brady in the 2001 season and how, because you know the defense was driving this team and the success, like the way the defense went, the team went really. And you saw that in that first game that Brady started, where the defense picked off or had 2 pick sixes on Peyton Manning, and they rolled, and Brady threw for like 100 total passing yards. But they brought up an interesting point about how Brady was kind of in a trial by fire, having to practice against this 2001 defense, especially with all the trash talking. They were talking about, I think it was Willie McGinnis was on there talking about how they would just like rip on Tom Brady after every mistake he ever made. But Ty Law and Mike Vrabel were the worst, to the point where Willie was saying, yeah, after some of the things, I'd turn to Mike Vrabel and be like, dude, that may have been too far. And then they cut to Vrabel and be like, no, I knew he could handle it. Like, yeah, I mean, you were right, but it probably was too far as well, because I can see Vrabel is talking about how, yeah, if the Titans got to Super Bowl, he cut his own dick off. So I can see how he would talk a bunch of shit if, you know, there's a rookie quarterback against him and his dominant defense. But I'm wondering how much that had to do with, because McGinnis was talking about how, you know, Tom was getting tougher, not just physically, but mentally, having to go against this defense every day. I'm wondering how much that kind of like almost quickened his kind of learning across the 2001 season, in terms of having to go against it. Like, you know, if he had to go against the fucking...
You have it or you don't. You have the mental fortitude or you don't.
But at the same time, like, I think that's a good point, because it's like you having to go up against a Bill Belichick defense every day in practice.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming out of it.
And these guys, these starters, like going on the scout team, like fucking trying to knock Brady's head off.
Right.
Yeah, maybe the speed of the game, right? Like you get used to the speed of the game because you're playing against a real good defense. But like trash talking, like I don't know.
Oh yeah, no trash. Yeah, I just thought that was, you know, just kind of a funny picture to have Ty Law and Mike Vrabel just absolutely tearing Tom Brady a new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like what Ty Law was talking about in the Edelman podcast, like how competitive they were about everything.
Everything.
Drinking water.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
And how if the scout team was on the field, they just started doing wind sprints because they knew they were playing man coverage one week and they wanted to be able to, he's like, I'm not the fastest guy, but I want to be able to run with him the entire fucking game.
Right. And that just dynamic as far as that and the shit talking, all that stuff, like that team was a wagon when you really think about it.
There's a culture there that I think it fit Brady perfectly.
I got a question for you guys. So say they bring back Bledsoe after that Rams game. Do the Patriots win the Super Bowl? Because I think we all agree the defense was what got them there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Bledsoe play the rest of the season?
Yeah, he plays out.
I don't.
It's a tricky one.
I don't think so.
Because I think part of it too is momentum, right? Like they start winning games and people start believing. I feel like that means a lot in sports where you're like, guys, we can do this. We're playing well. Everyone's invested. They're like, putting the extra work in, and then, that momentum doesn't go away if you go back to Bledsoe, and he's still a good quarterback.
Yeah, but I think that the defense and the rest of the team around Brady kind of, because Brady was in there and he was the inexperienced guy, everybody kind of realized they had to step up their game to kind of bring Brady up with them.
I don't buy that. Like,
that's what they were saying.
They don't try harder when.
But I don't. It's not that they don't try hard. It's just that
I feel like it's a belief factor of like we can do it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think they all believe they were trying harder. You know what I mean?
I just think that. Go ahead.
It's just like they're putting that extra prep work or whatever. They just kind of do that one extra thing every time because like, well, fuck, we got Brady. We don't have Bledsoe anymore, so let's just kind of like it's their point of view is that it depended on them now, especially on the defensive side of things. And would the defense have been as dominant if they didn't have that mentality going in that, we still got Drew Bledsoe, so it'll be fine. He's still a confident quarterback. Maybe not, right? I don't know.
I mean, I think that's a good point. Like the defense did feel like, we're the leaders of the team. Like it's on our backs. I also think if you put Bledsoe back in, Bledsoe does kind of have that gunslinger mentality. Also, he's not as mobile. So that's going to lead to more sacks.
That probably didn't fit the scheme better.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not going to manage the game the way Brady did in a lot of these games where the Patriots are winning 17-16, but Brady didn't have any turnovers. So the defense was able to keep him in it.
Brady's more of a mistake-free kind of guy, and I feel
especially back then, yeah.
Yeah, and think about if you put Bledsoe in the Snow Bowl. What do you think happens?
That's what I was going to go with. Is that the drive before the game the game time drive, right? Where they hadn't done shit all game, and then Brady takes him all the way. They just like something starts clicking, and it's like, holy shit, it's clicking. And he takes him all the way down. And he does that run in where he spikes it and then falls in the snow. To me, that's so vintage Brady, and what sets Brady apart is like when it's fucking we need it time, Brady just
get it.
Figure shit out. Like I don't know what's different, but
it doesn't even need to be. It's rarely pretty either. At least back then, but it just worked.
Like the last Super Bowl we won against the Rams, right? They didn't get shit going all game, and then you're like, we need one drive here. And Brady just pulls it out of his ass and just fucking gets it done. Yeah. And that was the difference to me with Brady and the rest of these really good quarterbacks is they didn't have that, I don't know, that gene, right? That like, I just get it done when I need to get it done.
Exactly.
Good. I like that question though. That's a good question. Greg.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
He's on his A game today, dude.
That's right.
He's firing on also.
Fired up. Yeah, I'm fired up.
I love it. He's got rejuvenated energy with this documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have many more notes on this, just because they're literally talking about a game we all know very well. And I was expecting to see some of the plays that like they didn't show them. Oh, interesting. I would have shown.
There was some audio that was in there that I found interesting. I did like those kind of like behind the scenes, Brian Cox and different players.
Hotel they stayed at. That was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was another interesting part.
Right. Yeah, but and also just like hearing the way Brady talked about Belichick and Belichick talked about Brady, especially like at the end where, Brady's like, we're down 10-0. We're down by 10 points to a really good team in the fourth quarter in the snow. We haven't done anything on offense. And like, we're like, what do we have to do? And Belichick comes over and be like, all we need is one drive. Like, we're still in this. Like, just get a drive, get a touchdown. We're going to call our best plays and let's just execute them. And he's like, and that was just like all we had to do. And, it kind of just like shook him out of like, oh, woe is me sort of thing. And, and just the two of them, the way they talk about how, I couldn't be the player I was without him. Brady talking about Belichick, because, and even Belichick being like, I like Brady's preparation and what he brought every day, like made me have to prepare even more than I normally would. So it's really, that drove me. So it's just, I think the two of them were the perfect combination of quarterback and head coach that like, I don't think you'll see again.
Yeah. It speaks to just more of that competitiveness. Like there's a competition within the competition within the competition. And like, that was just the perfect recipe for the start of a dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Troy Brown though? No Troy Brown sightings.
No Troy Brown sightings. Yeah. Because he was kind of the engine of the offense in the early 2000s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, another couple unsung heroes from this game that I want to make sure get mentioned: David Patton, Jermaine Wiggins, Snowball, massive games.
Mm-hmm. Larry Izzo,
Larry
Izzo, two full recoveries on
podcast, a full game podcast. This is the one because there's so many like cool things that happen in this where you're like, holy shit, I forgot that happened.
Yeah,
and it's like Gary Rice is playing in this game. Like,
right.
That Raiders team. I love those,
and the whole like Rich Gannon thing and his relationship with the head coach. What's his name? Fucking Chucky there. Yeah. His relationship with Gruden, how like deteriorated it was. They wouldn't even speak to each other on the sidelines and stuff. Like it was bananas. Yeah, there's a lot of great storylines from that game. I agree.
Mm-hmm. And Brown.
Yeah.
All right, closing thoughts.
So far, so good. Again, this isn't the documentary I would have put together because I would have focused more on the games themselves because that's kind of what we do here. But so far, I think it's pretty balanced, but also there hasn't been a lot of new stuff for me in this at all.
I agree.
I was hoping to see more behind the scenes of some of these things that would have been cool to see, but I guess, maybe it doesn't exist or, maybe that wasn't part of the storyline like what Tim was alluding to earlier. So
what would you rate episode 1 and episode 2? I don't know, like 9.5 or,
I give them like an 8 out of 10, 7, 8 out of 10 in that range. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's just
because of the more football focused.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really good to see the snowball. But the first one was good to, getting to see some of that Belichick in Cleveland stuff too. And the whole Ty Law, Lawyer Malloy talking shit about Tom Brady.
Yeah. I thought it was too Brady Belichick centric, Yeah. And Harrison mentioned that too in an interview. He's like, that team was so much more than just those two guys. And
absolutely.
I thought like the Tom versus time thing, like, all right, like that's the focus of your documentary. Where this one I thought was going to be more just like the Patriots in general. Obviously, Brady's a big part of it, but I don't know. To me, I would have liked to see more of like the other guys on this team get there. OTIS.
Yeah, give me some OTIS, dude.
Antoine Harris.
To Bucky Jones.
Right.
To Bucky.
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that we haven't seen Troy Brown
Patton had a massive season, dude. He's super underrated.
Yeah, David Patton, I mean, in this season, the second time they played the Colts was the only other player other than Gale Sayers to catch, throw, and run for a touchdown in the same game.
Uh-huh.
Didn't even mention it. Like, you just, mention it.
Well, also, my other thought is Apple TV sucks. It's such a brutal app. I can't believe I paid for this subscription.
Yeah, I got you.
You gonna compensate me for it?
No, but I'll make it so you don't have to watch the rest of them on it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't say too much, Andy. The feds will be kicking your door down.
That's true.
Steve Jobs coming back from the grave. Give me my 999, motherfucker.
I think I can take the I can take the crafts, you know. I'm fine with it.
I didn't think it was too heavy-handed on the conspiracy stuff. Everyone's talking about Kraft, though. Maybe that comes later, but the first 2 episodes I thought were relatively fair. I mean, they gave Belichick shine and they kind of talked him up. So
yeah, I think it's been. I think it's been relatively balanced so far. So yeah. All right. Well, so far so good.
How many are there? 8?
There are 10.
10.
Yeah. We'll see how far we get.
Yeah, we got a cliffhanger of Tom Brady getting his knee buckled in Pittsburgh. That's the end of
That's episode. Right. That's how episode 2 ended.
Yeah.
And who could possibly replace him? No idea.
Do we have anybody on this roster that can step in this really big game and lead our team to victory?
Is there anybody else who has played quarterback before?
Dude, say what you want, but this season is so fucking miraculous. All the shit that happened is
it's storybook.
Yeah, storybook, dude. I'm glad they spent enough time on this first season because it was like no other season, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. Especially as a way to kick off a dynasty too. It's yeah. You can't really you couldn't craft it any better. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. That was pretty good.
Oh.
That was an accident, but we'll pretend it was on purpose.
We're gonna be sponsored next episode. Craft Dynasty LLC.
Oh, I don't think so.
Our takes are gonna be way different.
I don't think we give the ownership enough credit, you know.
You know, he's just a fan, right?
He's a fan. He grew up as a fan.
So harsh on a fan.
All right. Well, this has been a blast, and until next time, we'll see you later.
Yeah, later.
See you later.
See ya.